Welcome to the November 2021 edition of Hunt Camp Mail. I had some fantastic days out hunting this month in just absolutely perfect fall weather conditions. I really love this time of year. And I also hope that everybody had a fantastic Thanksgiving. This holiday is about more than food, football, and pilgrims celebrating the harvest. This is a holiday where we reflect on things that we should be thankful for and remember those that are less fortunate than ourselves. Regardless of its beginnings, the Great American Thanksgiving Feast is a testament to our generosity to family, friends, and complete strangers. This is a night where Americans do everything in their power to ensure that a great feast is enjoyed, from the homeless shelters to the tables of every home in this country. Food drives, donation centers, and other charitable activities flood our low-income households with food items so that every person in this country can have a feast at the exact same time. It's actually one of the world's greatest acts of generosity, even though the woke leftists increasingly try to attack it. We didn't have a lot of guests at our house this year because much of our family has moved out of state in the last few years, but Becca really outdid herself in the kitchen this year. Here's some footage of the Thanksgiving feast that she prepared. We have a lot of really great questions in this month's Hunt Camp Mail. And don't forget to watch this video till the very end because I'll give you details on an upcoming fan trivia giveaway that'll happen next week. So be sure to get that information because you're really going to want one of Desert Dog's swag boxes. I might even give you guys a hint on what one of the questions will be. So be sure to stay tuned towards the end. So with bellies full of turkey, let's get to November's mail. Our first question is from Robert in Ventura, California. Robert asked, "Love the channel, Desert Dog. Other than keeping it dry and storing it correctly, what is the best way to keep a gun from rusting?" It's actually a very good question. The best way to keep a gun from rusting is to have some sort of barrier between the metal and the environment. The difference in coatings between cheap and expensive guns is actually very drastic. When you buy a budget firearm, the finish on that gun is the first area where they cut costs. So, for instance, if you buy a Beretta, look at the difference between an A300 and an A400. If you're a Winchester Model 70 guy like me, look at the finish between a rat grade Model 70 and a super grade Model 70. So a lot of that expense for that gun is in the finish. And that plays probably the major role in corrosion resistance and protection from rust. But other than the factory finish, there are other preventative measures that should be taken. Traditionally, this was done with a light coat of oil, but I've been using a thin layer of Corrosion X on all of my guns for many years now. And I even put a coat of Corrosion X down the bore before I put my gun back in the safe, and that stuff actually really works. I used it on my saltwater fishing reels for many years, and it's just as effective on firearms. And our next question is from Philip from Utah. Philip wrote, "I love your channel, Desert Dog, especially the concentration on ethical hunting and respect for the environment. As a faithful and lifelong member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I have a keen sense of a person's spiritual compass. I respect that you are not afraid to confront things from a spiritual perspective, but do so without revealing adherence to any particular belief system. Come to think of it, You also take on politically charged issues without revealing your political allegiances. On my world travels with the church and my personal interactions with people of all religions, you represent a unique type of individual. My guess would be that you're an agnostic or deist with libertarian political leanings. If I'm wrong about that, I sincerely apologize. I'm not trying to judge you. Your hunting ethics video had a very compelling spiritual argument for hunting without the typical religious content that other hunters offer. And that sets up my question for you and why I think you might be able to give me some objective insight. The church seems very divided on whether sport hunting is acceptable. There are verses in scripture that seem to be interpreted as against hunting, depending on how the reader interprets phrases such as beasts of the field and fowls of the air. I have many hunters in my family, but several prophets of the Lord and modern church leaders are adamantly against sport hunting. Many younger members of the church are increasingly viewing hunting as an evil activity. What advice would you have for a Latter-day Saint hunter? Wow, that is a hard question to answer, but I'll give it a shot. I'll start out, Philip, by pointing out that you're 100% correct in your assessment of me. Even though I don't believe in putting people into categories based on religion, I could easily be categorized as an agnostic libertarian. Your observational skills with people are very astute. You definitely have a gift for reading other people. But I think that also poses a problem. I feel that you're afraid to use your amazing ability to read people on yourself because you might come to personal realizations that conflict with what your church leaders teach. I'm personally not tethered to any religious doctrine, so I can't possibly relate to the internal conflict and struggle on this issue that you're dealing with. But it sounds like hunting feels right to you, but you don't want to betray your faith. Although I do believe there's more to this universe than what could be measured or seen or grasped, our definition of spirituality probably won't overlap to any great extent. So if you're looking for religious continuity, you're probably not going to find it with me. And let me point out something that you mentioned about the scriptures that you follow. From the Old Testament days, the term beasts of the field specifically referred to wild animals as opposed to cattle and livestock. I remember, I think it was in Leviticus, it speaks of beasts of the field attacking and killing livestock and cattle. So there was a differentiation there between beasts of the field and domestic livestock. So in the Judeo-Christian context, beasts of the field refers to wild animals. And it seems like the modern LDS church interprets that to mean the exact opposite, which makes absolutely no sense. But secondly, I want to state that Mormons eat meat. Eating meat involves taking a life, right? Is the life and spirit of a deer more valuable than the life and spirit of a cow? This is the hypocrisy of anti-hunters, where hunting an elk is murder, but shooting a cow in the head isn't. If you eat meat or even plants cultivated from fields, you're contributing to the death of animals. That's just a fact. Whether you're hunting them or raising them, animals die so that we can live. This is pure logic that's hard for an intelligent mind to ignore. And lastly, if killing wildlife is evil, then how do we manage overpopulation of animals? How do you manage the carrying capacity of a piece of land without managing the wildlife populations that live in it? Utah is being developed at an alarming rate right now. Watch my habitat loss video, and I actually have some footage in Utah on that. And much of this development is with funding from the LDS church. With increased habitat loss, hunting might be the best tool for the environmental health of Utah, period. How is ethically killing an animal for meat less acceptable than destroying the habitat of many animals? Once again, logic should prevail on this. So I hope you found a little bit of truth in my rebuttal. The anti-hunting aspect of your church makes absolutely no sense to me at all. But then again, organized religion in general makes very little sense to me. I might have been the wrong person to ask, but there's my answer. And our next question is from Timothy from Las Vegas, Nevada. Timothy wrote, in your last Hunt Camp mail, you referred to the fall of internet forums and how YouTube took over instructional and tech information on the internet. Now that YouTube is becoming anti-hunting, you see another platform taking the torch from YouTube. What if all of this valuable hunting information on YouTube is eventually gone forever? Let me give you a little bit of history or a synopsis of my history on information on the internet. By 1994, web pages started storing vast amounts of important information and rapidly made books almost totally obsolete. Every aspect on an expert on hunting and fishing had a website just teeming with information and wisdom on it. But by about 2005, most of those websites and the information that they contain were gone, erased forever, along with a decade of important wisdom that they contain. It was a complete tragedy in my mind because some of the best classic firearm content and gunsmithing content ever created was lost when those websites went down. Then, forgot about what year it was, maybe the mid to late 90s, internet forums became the central hub of collective knowledge for everything. The amount of information available on any subject in internet forums was just unimaginably huge. From product reviews to trip reports to anything else you needed, forums held the collective experience of humanity. But by 2014, internet forums were pretty much dead or dying, being replaced by social media and YouTube. Now, most of that information is gone from the record forever. So between websites and forums, 30 years of collective intelligence went poof into the ether when the platforms collapsed. Some of the greatest wisdom in history was erased from record with the click of a delete button. And today, since Facebook and Instagram aren't repositories of accessible information, YouTube is the only current digital accumulation of publicly available knowledge. In the future, though, YouTube will inevitably destroy itself by its own policies, and something will come along to replace it probably. But lots of information will be lost forever when YouTube is gone. So you're right about that. Think about how important YouTube is for everything from cooking recipes to watching reviews on gear to even planning trips. One day, YouTube will flick off the switch and it'll be gone forever, including this video that you're watching. The only real true form of collective wisdom that is long-lasting is the book. Once I buy a book, the information in that book is mine forever. And every time I want to revisit or research that information, I simply grab the book and look it up. Digital information, though, is temporary, fleeting, and at the mercy of whoever pays the electric bills. This is one of the thousands of problems with our dependency on technology today. Even in this nearly 100% digital age that we live in, the most informed people among us are those who read books. And our next question is from Christopher from Phoenix, Arizona. Christopher wrote, "Hello, Desert Dog. My name is Christopher, U.S. Marine Corps retired from Phoenix, Arizona. I am a combat disabled veteran. I was wounded in action May 18th, 2010 in the battle for Marja, Afghanistan. I spent an extra year past my contract in the Naval Hospital being put back together, a long and painful process. After what I went through in the war, I never thought I would want to hunt, but having lots of time while convalescing, I started reading books by great hunters like Jim Corbett, J.A. Hunter, and others that really made me feel a sense of kinship with these men. I'm pretty young to be retired. I'm only in my 30s, but the upside is I have more time to dedicate to learning to hunt animals. Despite my injuries after years of therapy, I have fought my way back to being able to walk without wheelchairs and canes. And I one day aspire to hunt Africa. I started looking for videos on dangerous game rifles and found your channel. I want to say the most sincere thank you for your humble and straightforward videos. I've watched each and every one and learned something from each. They have really inspired me to take up hunting animals and teach this to my children. I just purchased a new Winchester 70 Safari Express and 375 H&H based off your recommendation, and I can't wait to shoot it. My question is, what is your opinion on double rifles and the best calibers for them? I know you mentioned a Heim double you have that you hardly use. Why? Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you for your service, Christopher. It's the sacrifices of people like you that make America great. And I'm extremely glad that you found the strength and willpower to recover from your devastating injuries. Now to your question. As I pointed out in my big bore rifle video, double rifles are less versatile than a bolt gun. My Heim is an absolute thing of beauty, but it's less accurate than my Model 70, a little heavier than my Model 70, has more felt recoil than my Model 70, holds less rounds, and is many times more expensive than a Model 70. And for the price of that double rifle, you could take multiple trips to Africa. And if you got a real sense for me in these videos, you know that I like working man's rifles. Something that can get beat up and abused in the field and by airport baggage handlers, and I won't care. I've seen and experienced horror stories while traveling internationally with guns, and honestly, there's no way in hell I would take a $15,000 double rifle to Africa with me. There's no way. If my cheap Model 70 that I bring to Africa gets stolen by airport workers or flies off the backy into crocodile-infested waters, it's really no huge deal in the big picture. And quite honestly, that Heim is more of a barbecue gun or a range toy to me. It really serves no purpose. And lastly, I'm going to give you a dose of reality that I think you need to hear. Make your first trip to Africa a plains game hunt rather than a dangerous game hunt. Bring your cheap 30-06 or other deer rifle with you over there. Put some plains game in the salt and learn all of the nuances of traveling and hunting in Africa. Then after that first experience, you could start planning a dangerous game trip. I also recommend that you hold off on buying a dangerous game rifle right now until you actually book a hunt to use it. I'd say that 99% of people who buy big bore rifles do so for a dangerous game hunt that they never take. Basically, they tell themselves that they're going to book this awesome buffalo hunt or elephant hunt and never seem to do it because they don't have the time or can't afford a $15,000 hunt after they bought a $15,000 double rifle. So yes, my advice to you is to maybe not buy a dangerous game rifle right now. Use the deer rifle you already have and spend that extra money to book a plains game hunt right now. And our next question is from Dave from Kansas. Dave wrote, my rifle is a 700 ADL varmint with scope package that I bought some years ago. I think it's the only rifle I ever bought new in the box. It has a heavy barrel, beavertail synthetic stock, chambered in 22-250. I bought it allegedly for coyote hunting. When I looked at it yesterday, the barrel date code showed it was built in 2012. When I got it out yesterday, I found out I didn't know how to remove the bolt and I didn't have the owner's manual close at hand. I now have the owner's manual close at hand. Never having read past the first page, I'm somewhat confused. The owner's manual refers to a security system that locks the bolt open by use of a key that is supposed to be included. I don't remember ever seeing that in the box. However, as I was operating the bolt, I discovered that once I had opened the bolt, the first time after pulling the trigger causing the striker to operate with an empty chamber, which required the safety to remain in the fire position before I could open the bolt and cocking the striker. Then I could move the safety to the safe position and open or close the bolt at will. This is somewhat in conflict with the owner's manual that says you must place the safety in the S position before opening the bolt for loading either a single round or the magazine. It never mentions that the safety must be in the F position to open the bolt if it's not cocked. Also, there are several examples of cover your ass in the manual. What gives? Remington technical writer error, incompetence, or just snafu? Well, I have to say, Dave, it was really hard to follow your question and your explanation, Dave. But from what I can decipher from your letter, is that you're reading an owner's manual from a Remington rifle that had the J-lock system on it. But if your rifle was built in 2012, like you said, it wouldn't have the J-lock system because Remington got rid of the J-lock system in 2006 when they came out with the X-Mark Pro trigger group. And that J-lock system only lasted a few years, and most people ordered an aftermarket firing pin assembly to delete the J-lock system because they didn't like it. Perhaps you aren't reading the date code on your barrel or receiver properly. I don't know. Also, older Model 700s had a bolt lock feature where the safety had to be in the fire position to lift the bolt up. But Remington later changed that to where the bolt would lift in the safe position as well, so the rifle could be loaded and unloaded while it's on safe. It's a compromise, and one of the reasons why I prefer a 3-position safety over a 2-position safety. And our next question is from Chris from British Columbia, Canada. Chris wrote, I'm a new hunter, shooter, and reloader situated in British Columbia. I greatly appreciate your channel. You've become my most trusted source of information as I learn. Professionally, I work in the field of data and statistical modeling, and I'm beginning to explore new ways that I might use Bayesian modeling techniques to guide a load development process and render it more efficient and effective. I don't know if my efforts will yield anything, but that's part of the fun. I think the only problem that you're going to have with that form of statistical modeling is that it'll only apply to one particular barrel. While it's true that I might have a massive data set for how different reloading components perform in a particular rifle, that information is confined to that one barrel. So the first thing you need to understand is that every barrel reacts differently to each variable, sometimes drastically different, which is the main reason that I don't give out load data. A great load in my custom Brooks barrel might be really dangerous in your Savage barrel. Also consider lot-to-lot variances with powders and primers, which with some powders can be very drastic. Basically, I believe that statistical modeling will work for predicting load data for a rifle, but only that one particular barrel with that one particular lot of powder. Then you have to ask yourself, if you've already collected that much data to input into your Bayesian model, you probably already found your load without the need to do statistical modeling. The frequentists have been attempting to do this with load data for years and discover that they find a great load while they're gathering the data for their statistical model. And the whole modeling process after the fact was pretty much a waste of time. Of course, I'm a layperson, so perhaps I'm completely wrong in my understanding, but you have to admit, statisticians have a bad habit of overcomplicating simple things. Our next question is from David from California. David asked, "Hi, Desert Dog. Can you carry a sidearm in California while hunting? Hope you can add it to your next hunt camp mail. That would be awesome. Also, please bring Swamp Doggy back." And before I go any further, if you're in California and you've been wondering this, check out the California Penal Code, sections 25640 and section 26040 for more details on this. But the answer to your question basically is yes, you can carry a sidearm while hunting in California, and I've done it a lot. Also be mindful that if you're hunting on an archery only tag during archery only season, there's special limitations to carrying a firearm, so you need to research that. If rifle hunting in California, though, you have to be honest with yourself about how practical carrying your 1911 is when you already have your 30-06 in your hand. We don't have grizzly bears here in California, and honestly, you're 1,000 times more likely to die from lack of water than you are from lack of a handgun. So you have to consider the practicality of your gear choices as well. Our next question is from Peter from South Africa. Peter wrote, "Are you back on track with your Africa hunt for 2022? I know that the China virus has put off your Africa hunts for the last 2 seasons. Are you attending the SCI show in Las Vegas this year? We have a booth there, and I would love it if you stopped by to say hello." Well, thank you for the invitation, Peter. I'm currently communicating with a couple of PHs for a buff hunt next year, and hopefully I can get back to Zambia. But I will say that prices seem to have gone up considerably, which I guess is expected with the global monetary inflation going out of control right now. But I hope to make a deal with the PH and be back in the bush next year, throwing back Mosies. I'd love that. But I'm not attending the SCI convention because I really don't like the mask mandate in Nevada right now. SCI should really move out of Nevada for a more hunter-friendly and freedom-friendly city like maybe Nashville or something. But I will be flying to Dallas and attending the Dallas Safari Club convention. If you have a booth at that convention, I'll definitely stop by and say hello. And our next question is from Dave. Man, there's a lot of Daves this month, and this Dave didn't tell me where he was from, but Dave asked, "Hi, Desert Dog. Thanks for all the knowledge you spread. I'll make this short and simple since I know you are a busy person. Can you provide a recommendation on what type of choke I should be using when hunting quail with steel shot? I suspect improved cylinder, but can you share your thoughts?" I don't know if you noticed it, but this month I actually posted a video titled "Steel Shot for Upland Hunting," and I highly recommend you look at that video because I actually go over this in more detail. But to answer your question, the choke you use will depend on how well your ammo patterns in your shotgun at 25 or 30 yards. With number 5 or number 6 steel shot, probably a skeet or improved cylinder choke will usually pattern the best, but grab a couple of chokes in your ammo and pattern that gun. I mean, you wouldn't hunt deer with a rifle that wasn't zeroed, so don't go out and hunt birds with a shotgun that isn't patterned. And our next question is from Frank from Miami Lakes, Florida. Frank wrote, "I've been comparing the 35 Whelen and the 9.3 by 62. The Whelen is pretty much unobtainium in a decent stock rifle. Also, I'm not fond of the small and steep shoulder on this case. Without a belt, it looks like it could possibly have head spacing issues. Sauer chambers a 9.3 in its 100 series of rifles, or I could splurge on a Sacco. Tikka is another option. I could also buy good quality brass from Norma and Nosler. After weighing the options, I'm really liking the 9.3 by 62 better than the 35 Whelen. I'm interested in knowing your thoughts on this. P.S. Here's a pic of our Florida boars. I'm the fat one on the right. And here's a pic of Frank's boar. Man, Frank, that pig over that pit is making me hungry. And I just ate Thanksgiving dinner. Now, on to your question. I like both cartridges a lot, but personally, I find the Whelen more useful at bridging the gap between my 30-06 and my 375 H&H. Also, I've never had a head spacing issue with the 35 Whelen, nor have I heard of anybody else having those issues. The Whelen isn't quite as old as the 9.3, but it does have a 100-year history of reliably functioning in just about every rifle platform ever made. You know, even the 400 Whelen headspace fine, and that 400 Whelen is probably the limit in my opinion, but it headspace good. So I wouldn't let the case shoulder stop me from considering this round. I think it's a non-issue. But your statement on rifle availability in a factory rifle is a valid concern. It's definitely around for guys with custom barrels, just like your venerable old 300 H&Hs. So that point is valid, but on your brass issue, I buy high quality Nosler brass in large quantity in 35 Whelen all the time, and I find this to be readily available. I can go online and order this right now. So getting good brass for 35 Whelen isn't an issue at all. Now, I guess I'll explain why I prefer the Whelen over the old 9.3. First of all, if I'm going to shoot 250 to 300 grain bullets, I'm going to do it with my 375 H&H because it handles that bullet range much better than the 9.3 or the Whelen ever will. I like using monolithic copper bullets a lot, especially here in California. And those 286 grainers out of the 9.3 are just going too damn slow for mono bullets to open up reliably, in my opinion. So my 375 will open up those heavier mono bullets much better, in my opinion. But if you already have a rifle, dies, and brass for the 375 H&H, that 9.3 makes absolutely no sense, I don't think. When I'm trying to bridge that gap between the 30-06 and the 375, I want a non-magnum cartridge shooting 225 grain projectiles. 220 to 230 grain bullets in 9.3 are almost impossible to get here in the States. Also, the Whelen, I think, is more efficient than the 9.3 when it comes to loading these lighter bullets. Shooting 225 grain bullets at between 2,700 and 2,800 feet per second out of my Whelen has been the perfect medium bore cartridge for my use. Big pigs, bears, and elk have been no match for that flat shooting, light recoiling load with the 225s. The Whelen will also launch a 225 grain bullet at the same velocity that a 30-06 launches a 180 grain bullet with almost the same powder charge, and that's pretty amazing stuff to me. I really like both the 9.3 and the Whelen, but the Whelen just happens to meet my needs better when I'm shooting those 225 grain bullets. I mean, if you want to look objectively at the big picture, you know, I could sit down and have a beer with you and gab for hours, Frank, about the usefulness and need for any of the medium bore cartridges. Our next question is from Sam in Boise, Idaho. Sam wrote, I've been a longtime subscriber to this channel and your old one. I also have a YouTube channel, and I understand how hard it is to play YouTube's game in order to stay monetized and not get banned. After watching your last hunt camp mail and reading some of your comments on videos, it made me realize that you have a lot of content that you don't post for various reasons. Although you stated that you don't want to, I think you should create a Patreon account so you can post content that you keep off of YouTube. I would gladly pay a monthly fee to watch videos of your hunts, game processing, and politically sensitive issues. I would even love to see videos in your so-called abandoned projects file. You should reconsider starting a Patreon account. Well, thanks for the letter, Sam. I looked into that earlier this year. If for nothing else, as a place where I could post videos and not worry about YouTube's moderation policies. I also thought about moving my hunt camp mail episodes over to a platform like Patreon because they're time consuming to create and they really don't get a lot of viewers. But after doing extensive research, I decided against that. Patreon actually seems like a good platform for creators like me. You know, it's easy to use and a good way to make a little bit of extra cash to fund video projects. But actual subscribers to it seem to be the ones having issues. In my research, there seems to be a lot of payment issues that subscribers experience with the Patreon platform. I'd say that probably 90% of the complaints I read are from subscribers claiming that they were overcharged by Patreon. So I don't want to tarnish my own reputation by inviting you to subscribe to a platform where you might have trouble with the hosting site. Also, I'm conflicted about charging people money to watch my videos. I mean, quite honestly, they aren't really that good. So for now, I'm still conflicted about sites like Patreon and continuing hunt camp mail into 2022. And our next question is from Robert from California. Robert wrote, Desert Dog, I see a lot of YouTube hunters claiming that they've shot hundreds and even thousands of animals, and every single one they shot has dropped dead right on the spot without running. Do you believe this? I guess short answer, no, I don't. If you've been hunting long enough, you know that that's just not true. I mean, even with a perfect shoulder shot, they don't always go down, and sometimes when they go down, they get back up. It's just with human beings. There's some human beings that you punch them square in the face as hard as you can, and they'll buckle up and their eyes will roll back and they'll go straight down on the ground with a broken jaw. And there's others that their head might go back an inch or two and they'll smile and look at you like it didn't even affect them. And animals are the same way. There's just some really tough animals. And I don't want to say just that they're physically tough. A lot of them just have a greater will to live, I guess. And that's just a fact of hunting. I mean, the other day, I went out with my wife to hunt doves, and I called this dove the Chuck Norris dove. I literally shot this thing 3 times. I used all 3 shots in my Beretta A400, and I shot it cleanly. I have video of it, and these were just devastating hits, 3 of them on this bird. And after that 3rd shot, it even flew a little bit before it just keeled over, fell on the ground, and died. And when I went to field dress that bird, I actually had to throw it away. I couldn't recover anything off of it. It was just complete Swiss cheese, but yet it was still flying. And I've seen that with deer, with elk, with African animals. It's just a way of life. So anybody who tells you they've shot 1,000 animals and every single one of them has just went bang, flop, dead, they're not very credible in my opinion. And I guess for your viewing pleasure, I'll post up that video of that Chuck Norris dove that refused to die. And our last question this month is from Monty in San Dimas, California. Monty wrote, I watched your video on slings along with several other videos on your channel. One thing you never mentioned in that video was what sling swivels you use. If you don't mind, could you recommend a brand of swivel to use in my new rifle? Well, no problem, Monty. Back in the day, I used Uncle Mike's super swivels. And, 90% of other hunters out there use these swivels too. These were definitely, and maybe still are, the most popular swivels on the market. And at one time, they were really good quality at a good price and 100% American made. Unfortunately, Uncle Mike's moved production of these to China, and quality went downhill very fast. Now, Grove Tech swivels are the official sling swivel of Desert Dog Outdoors. These are 100% USA made. The quality is fantastic, and the price is actually surprisingly cheap for what you get. I'll put a link to these swivels in the description below for you. Well, that's it for this month's Hunt Camp Mail. I also want to thank John in Michigan, Tom in Washington, Hans in Germany, and Timothy for your kind letters. Here's some hunting and fishing memes sent to me by my viewers this month. Those were some pretty good memes, weren't they? Also, I want you guys to stay tuned for another fan trivia giveaway episode. Fan trivia giveaway will air on December 2nd at 4 p.m. Pacific time. The first 3 people to email me the answer to all 3 trivia questions will win a Desert Dog Outdoors swag box. I'll send the prizes anywhere in the world, and I mean anywhere. I sent one to Germany last year. So don't be afraid to participate if you live in another country. You're more than welcome to. And I'm going to cheat this time and give you one of the questions right now. The first question is going to be, what is my youngest son's name? What is my youngest son's name? And the answer to that can be found in a video that I posted this month. So be ready on December 2nd at 4 p.m. Pacific time, and we'll do another fan trivia giveaway. Once again, I hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving. You can reach me with any questions or comments at desertdogoutdoors@gmail.com. As always, thanks for watching and good hunting.